What's up guys, Alex over at Graveyard Performance here. Today we're going to be showing you the basics of a Cobb access port and how you can get started on tuning your Mazda Speed, Focus ST, RS, Subaru, you name it. Cobb offers tuning support for a ton of platforms and they're one of the most popular options to go about flashing your ECU and getting custom tuning done for your vehicle. So today we're just going to start by opening this brand new Cobb access port box. Now this is for Focus ST or Fiesta ST. What you're going to see here is some basic stuff like your warranty card, manual. You'll have your actual box and carrying case. This is going to have your mounting hardware along with your cable. So in this carrying case, you will have the access port itself along with the USB cable, and then you'll have the access port, some cases, stickers, serial badges, stuff like that. But the main thing that you need right here is your access port. One thing I just want to point out, because I get it asked all the time, when you get your access port, you'll see this red dot and you'll see this film around it. You won't usually have these bubbles in the film because we've already taken it off once. It'll look almost like the actual screen, but it'll have scratches over it. Don't freak out and think your AP's scratched. You just need to pull the film off and it's clear as day. So the first thing that we're going to go over today is how to update this access port, make sure it's ready to be installed on the vehicle, as well as showing you the best way to install it on the vehicle as far as finding your OBD port and relocating that so you have a little bit more play, maybe where to run your wires, as well as potentially getting mod information off your car, as well as the AP info that your tuner might need if you're going to be doing a custom tune, which is the route we suggest for these platforms. So let's go ahead and go over to a computer and we'll show you how to download the program that you need to be able to use this access port and get tunes on and off of it. Okay, now we're on the computer. I'm going to show you how to download the application that you need. First thing you want to do is come over to cobbtuning.com, and on their headliner you'll find the software tab and go to Access Port Manager. So this is the program that we will need to download and utilize to put tunes, pull data logs, do anything regarding the access port. So depending on which operating system you have, you can either download the Mac or the Windows one. We're using Windows here, so just a simple download, and that will go ahead and get started. Okay, now that that's downloaded, we're going to open this up. It will ask for admin permission. Next, make sure it's in a file that you like, install. It's going to do all the installation by itself. Okay, so it did drop my screen recorder there for a second, but it just finished up the installation process and comes to this screen where you can finish it and it will allow it to run as well. So there is an agreement, pretty much just, standard agreement stuff, making sure Cobb isn't liable for you messing anything up. But if you follow this tutorial, everything should be pretty simple. So your access port manager is now installed. This is really the main thing that you need. It is now time to hook up our access port to the computer. Okay, now that we've got the access port plugged in, you will see it says connected up here, and it has eject AP rather than having connect right there. If it doesn't show up for you immediately, try clicking connect or maybe try a different USB port, but it should work for you. We don't typically have an issue with connecting. But the first thing you want to do before you go forward with the tuning process is hit the update button and then begin firmware update. This will ensure that the software on the access port is most up to date, and this will prevent you from having any issues, as well as making sure you have the most features that are accessible on the newest update by Cobb. So it does have a few steps that you will have to wait through. This will take a few minutes. Typically, it's very important that you do not disconnect your access port during this update. Otherwise, you may corrupt some of the information on your access port, and that's an issue that you definitely don't want to deal with because you would have to send it back to Cobb for repair. So just be patient here, as it does take a couple minutes. Okay, now that the update is done, you are good to click OK. It's going to reload the access port information, and you are ready to install the access port on the vehicle. So come up to this button that says eject access port, or you can use the shortcut Control and E. and that will allow the computer to safely disconnect the access port from the computer. So just take the access port and we're gonna head over to the car now. Okay, so now that we're over by the car, the first thing we're gonna do before we do any of the flashing is make sure that the car has adequate power to the battery, because if you lose power during this flashing process, you're gonna really run into some issues. So this is super important. If you don't have it, I really recommend, either hooking up to a buddy's car or something just to have that backup power in case yours is low on voltage. So we've got a little battery tender here. On this Focus ST, you can just go power to power, and then the ground doesn't have to go on the negative terminal. You can just run it to a ground right there, and that will ensure that we have some backup power. You can see it's charging right now. It's at 12.7 volts, so a little low. Good thing we do that, because if it were to die on us during the flashing process, it could break the ECU, and that's a way more expensive problem and a huge headache that we just want to avoid altogether. Now that we're over here by the car, we have got our access port, and we switch over to our OBD cable. We won't be using the USB cable anymore. That's only for the computer. This is what you will need to have the proper data output to your access port. So I'll show you how to hook this up. It's a little tricky on the ST, but we'll show you how to do that right now. Okay, so under the dash right here, you have a compartment that just pulls right down, and you've got your OBD port right here. Now, the first thing I get a lot of people ask me is, hey, when you plug this in, once this is there like that, you can't close this. But there is a trick to that, and it's pretty simple. You just want to disconnect your OBD port from the little housing it's sitting in. There's two push clips on the side. You could probably honestly get it with your fingernails. I got one side. Yep, just like that. So you can push that out. And all I did was push these clips in on the side right there. And now you can kind of tuck everything back under there. You can feed the wire through here, close that up, and it looks a little bit more clean. Pro tip, this does connect all the way back behind your steering column. So if you want to run the wire up there and up to your vent, a lot of people will mount their access port up on this A-pillar or on the vent. You pretty much have control to mount it wherever you'd like, but that's pretty much, you can get your wire just about anywhere up behind the dash here. So we're gonna go ahead and plug our OBD cable in and get this access port installed on the vehicle, because you do need to do an initial installation on the vehicle before you can get the necessary info to send over to your tuner if you are getting a custom tune. So first things first, obviously, this is a, I think that's like a trapezoid or something. I haven't been in geometry in a long time, but match the size up, and that's in. You can tuck that back there, pull some wire through. We're gonna clean this up a little bit, but it's pretty straightforward. And just like that, you've got your wire, and it's not a huge mess, and this will connect right into there and click in. So we're good to go now. First thing we need to do is give ignition power to the car, so I'm gonna hop in the seat and get to installing this. In the car, we've got the access port connected to the car. We've got accessory power on. The engine is not on. You don't want to do this with the engine on. And you will have this screen saying install. If yours does not say install, if it says uninstall or gauges, it's likely already married to a car. So it's very important that you either buy this access port new from Cobb or one of their retail distributors, or alternatively make sure that it's unmarried from the original vehicle if you're buying a used unit. So we're going to go ahead and click install, which is that middle button. Now it will confirm to make sure that the vehicle matches the access port. So this does match. It is a 2013 or 14 Focus ST. Now it's going to ask you which map to install, and you've got a few options, and it might be a little overwhelming if you're not sure what you're looking at. To put it simply, these are the tunes that Cobb provides from the factory. We do not recommend them. They are not the most safe tunes. So the stage 0 is going to be essentially just a stock tune and allow the access port to function on that stock tune. That way we can take the time to get a custom tune that'll really be good for the car. So they are warning you, any installation over another tune may cause issues. This car isn't currently tuned, so we shouldn't worry about that here. It's also recommending a battery charger, which we've already shown you. So it'll ask if you want to back up the factory data or skip the factory backup. I always recommend backing up that factory data. It takes a little bit longer, but it will be, the factory data will be thrown back onto the ECU when you uninstall the tune. So it is important to do that, especially if you do ever plan to uninstall the access port from your car. So this does take a while, and you're going to get flashing lights and all sorts of things going on your dash. So don't freak out. It'll take a few minutes. So if you're on a hot summer day, don't leave the windows up, because you'll be in here cooking. So, just be patient, and once it gets to 100, it'll reset into the second part of the installation. So now that the tune is done flashing to the car, you are able to turn the ignition key off for about 15 seconds before starting the vehicle. I will give you a heads up, typically on that first restart, it does take a few extra seconds to crank, just because there is ECU learning and things have changed. So we'll go ahead and start the car and confirm that everything's still working as it should, and the car starts. So clutch in, neutral, and we're on. So we don't need it right now, so we're gonna go ahead and continue. And from here, you can see, you can monitor gauges and whatnot. People on these cars typically look at boost, AFR, charge air temp, oil temperature, octane adjustment ratio, and coolant temp or knock feedback, ignition correction. There's quite a few things you can look at on these cars, but honestly, a lot of people call these an anxiety port, because that information sometimes will make you think something's wrong when it's really not that serious. So at the end of the day, don't sweat the numbers too hard. If you think there's an issue with the car, reach out to your tuner. He'll tell you to take a data log and get some good information from that. We'll go back to the computer, and I'll show you how to get the information you might need to submit to your tuner for a custom tune. The only other information you might need is the only other information that you might need for a custom tune is a mod list. So make sure you look over your car, write down the mods that you have that are relative to your engine. So intakes, exhaust, downpipes, blow-off valves, things like coilovers and sway bars aren't going to matter as far as tuning goes, but you definitely want to let them know of any modifications you've made that might be related to the engine. So let's go ahead and disconnect this and go over to the computer, and we will get the information for our tuner. Okay, now we are back to our computer. We have our access port plugged into the USB cable again, with our access port manager open. Now that we have installed the access port to the vehicle, the access port has the information that is unique to your vehicle that the tuner will need to write a tune for your car. So once it's connected, you can click this AP info button, and the items that they need are your serial number and your vehicle name, as well as a mod list. Those are the two parts of information that your tuner will typically need. If there's any other information that they need specific, you can typically find it on this page, but every tuner that we've worked with has only needed the vehicle name and the serial number, which for a Ford, it's going to be FOR and then a few numbers. With a Mazda, it's going to be MAZ with the numbers, Subaru, SUB. You get where I'm going. It's going to have a prefix for the platform. Now that you've got your AP info pulled up, that will allow the tuner to have the right information to make revisions on the tune as necessary and get your tune dialed in. That way your car is running healthy and making the most power with your setup while still being safe for the engine and everything. So this is pretty much the basic walkthrough. If you guys have any other questions on this, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to help you out. Or if you just need an access port for one of your vehicles, we can get you set up over here at Graveyard Performance.